Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Stars Fan Stories here on Starcastic Remarks. Thank you guys so much for joining us for another one of these episodes. This is going to continue all the way throughout the summer, whether it be in July or in August. At the time we're recording this, it is July 8th because I messed up big time. Zach, I am so sorry. I still cannot believe I did that. But anyways, thanks for joining today. Our guest for today's Stars fan story is Zach. Zach, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm really glad to be here. I'm excited to talk about the stars as always. So,
Good. Well, don't be nervous or anything. It's well, I say that, but it's okay to be a little nervous. It's all right. But just imagine like this is like any other conversation you'd have with any other Stars fan. That's basically all we do, except when me and my brothers have a conversation about the Stars, sometimes it involves a little bit of yelling and screaming at each other because we both think the other's wrong. But it is what it is. Um, well, anyways, can you tell us just like just a little bit about yourself? Maybe what you do. Things that are like non-hockey related that just whatever. Can you just tell us a
yeah,
little bit about yourself?
yeah, absolutely. So my name is Zach Spanhak. I am actually a senior at Texas A&M University. I study history and political science with a minor in secondary education. So, kind of long-term goal is to be a teacher of some sort. Probably start high school level U.S. history, government class, something like that. Maybe eventually I'll try to be like a college professor, something like that nature. Right now, I'm actually in Washington, D.C. I have an internship on Capitol Hill, which is really exciting. So that's kind of been what I've been up to for the most part this summer. It was really an interesting experience to be watching, the Stars. They're kind of still deep in the playoff run at the time when I got up here to be watching them from outside of Texas. That was pretty fun experience. But other than that, just love hanging out with my family, with my friends, with my girlfriend, those sort of things. So really excited to be here.
So, how long have you been up there for your internship?
Yeah, I got up here near the end of May, like to last week of May, and my internship started that very last week of May, and I'll be here till the first week of August, and then I'll have about a week or two before school starts. So it's been a really fun summer so far.
So what do you do as an intern? That's got to be a little bit of a different, little bit of a different side gig to do before you actually get your real big boy job, as they say.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's kind of just a little bit of whatever they assign us to do. We actually have a lot of interns in the office that I'm in, so work kind of comes and goes as it does. The typical sort of day to day looks like maybe we work on one thing I always work on in the morning is like reading the news and kind of putting together the important news articles that we want the whole office to read about that morning. Answering phone calls. Giving tours of like the Capitol building, which has been a super cool experience. I remember when I visited DC when I was in like third or fourth grade, doing a Capitol tour then, and when you get to do it as like the tour guide, it's just a completely unique experience. It's really interesting. And then other than that, I just like do some policy research, kind of on the day to day, write memos, attend meetings as needed, that sort of thing. So it's a really fun job. Because you don't really know exactly what each day is going to look like, but there's always something interesting to do. So it's been fantastic.
So and let me ask you about this too, because I'm not gonna make you answer any controversial questions and stuff like that. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna back you into a corner like that. But uh, what I do want to ask you about is because it is such like a volatile job, if that
hmm
makes any sense, especially
hmm
right now in the world's climate and
hmm
especially in American politics.
hmm
Like, what get keeps you going? Like why did you decide to do political science? Because before I decided to become a music teacher, that was actually kind of one of the things that was on my mind, and I was
Yeah.
just and but what kind of strayed me away from it was the fact that I was just afraid of changing as a person, if that makes any sense. Because
Yeah.
I'm just afraid of everyone who's listening understands. You understand what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. So, so what made you decide to do it, and what's your motivation to continue to do it?
Yeah. Yeah. Originally, I got interested in when I applied to A&M to college. I was just going in as a history major. I knew I wanted to be a history teacher because I had really great history teachers, and it was just kind of something that I found a really big passion for. And just, without getting into like the politics side of things, political history was always something that was interesting to me as well. Like one of my kind of favorite topics is like really big into U.S. history, and specifically like U.S. history from the end of World War II to kind of the modern day. And I love being able to like kind of follow the line, put things together in that sort of way. And I also love learning about like the U.S. presidents and that sort of thing. So I've always been kind of interested in politics. And then basically what ended up happening is I kind of found out it was pretty easy to double major in things at A&M. And I knew I already wanted to take some political science classes. And so I just ended up adding that as the secondary major. And again, it's just a topic that I'm really interested in, especially really interested in that research side of things. I love doing research and kind of looking into questions that we have just in politics in general, and being able to kind of find answers to that, and hopefully with the end goal of just kind of making the world a little bit of a better place. So that's kind of the motivator there, just my personal passion for it. And then also kind of on the teaching side of things, I think it's really important that, especially high school students, we learn. I think we do in Texas at least. We do U.S. government. Usually, it's that second semester of senior year when you're already kind of checked out. And I think it's actually a really important class for people to just know how the government works and how they can be involved in it, whether that's just voting or maybe a little bit deeper involvement, something like that. And part of the reason I pursued the internship was that I thought it would allow me to bring a really unique experience into my classroom when it's all said and done. Because I don't think I never had a teacher, as far as I know, that had that firsthand experience, like working on Capitol Hill or anything like that. So I think bringing that in is a good way to just get my students a little bit more interested in that class, especially when that senioritis is hitting. And then hopefully I can kind of go from there and just in general, just teach them to want to be involved in their communities and in politics in the world, that sort of thing. So,
Well, we need more people like you in the world, Zach. Honestly, we do. Like for just listening to you talk, I'm just like, we need good people in this world in actually both of the areas of work that you're trying to get into. I mean, that's exactly the reason why I got into being a band director, is
mhm.
because I do love music, and I do love enjoying playing my instrument, which
Yeah.
is bass clarinet is my main instrument. But when I was in college, I worked with this organization called CASA. It's court appointed special advocates,
Hmm.
and there was a couple of instances where you have to go in and you have to be the advocate for the child, literally
Hmm.
exactly what it sounds
Hmm.
like, and you have to stand for that child in court and in the child's best interest, right? And uh, I'm not going to go into details about some of the things that I heard and some of
Hmm.
the things that were talked to me about, but like I was very lucky growing up with the parents that I have.
Hmm.
Me, Chris, and James were all very lucky, and hearing some of the stories that I heard, t- it's
Hmm.
truly breathtaking, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's just like, if I can make it one little difference in just one kid changing their life
Hmm.
around, if they're dealing with something like that, then then I'm doing something good with my life.
Absolutely.
So I fully commend you on what you're doing, and you seem to have got it figured out, man. That's great. That's
Thank
absolute.
you.
That's fantastic.
I
Uh,
appreciate that.
well, I know that, well, like this is a stars podcast and everything like that, but I think it's important to understand the backgrounds of people, like where they come from and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Now, that being said, uh, let's talk hockey now. The fun stuff.
Awesome. Let's do it.
More
Let's
of the
do
fun
it.
stuff. Uh, so obviously you're a Texas guy. You went to
Hmm.
Texas A&M. You're graduating from Texas A&M here, or you already have, actually, right?
No, I
Uh,
graduate next spring.
that's
So
right. That's what it
yeah.
is. Okay, I remember. I couldn't remember if it was you did it before or you're fixing to.
Hmm.
Um, so you're familiar with Texas, but why hockey? And
Hmm.
then how did the Dallas Stars work? Like what's your start to your Dallas Stars life?
Yeah, yeah. It's a bit of a convoluted story, but it all makes sense when it comes together. So, it really starts with my dad. So he's from originally outside of Chicago, but he moved to outside of Grand Rapids, Michigan when he was in middle school. And he didn't really even get into hockey until he was either in high school or college. And it was a kind of, I think at the time they were either in like the AHL or the IHL. whichever version of it was. It was the Muskegon Lumberjacks, if I'm remembering correctly. And he started going to games there because it was cheap at the time and it was kind of a minor league sort of thing. So there was a lot of fighting going on, which is pretty easy to bring in some of the more casual audience. And he fell in love with the game there. And he was originally a Detroit Red Wings fan. So he was rooting for them, and eventually him and my mom moved down to Texas. And a few years after I was born, the Dallas Stars, their minor league team, now the Texas Stars, moved into Cedar Park. I'm from outside of Austin, so my mom ended up getting my dad a pair of season tickets for, I think, a Christmas gift or a birthday gift or something like that, because she knew he was really into hockey, and so that was a good opportunity for him to get into that. So we started attending. I was still young at the time, so I wasn't, super knowledgeable about what all was going on. I was just excited to go there with my dad. I remember, I think that first season, the Texas Stars ended up going to the Calder Cup Finals, and I remember Jamie Benn specifically was sent down as kind of like a black ace sort of situation. And he was like my first favorite player just because he was like way better than everybody else on the team pretty much instantly. Um, so then pretty much my whole life, I was going to kind of Texas Stars games here and there. And I, again, wasn't necessarily super into hockey. I just liked going to the games and enjoy and, like watching them, that sort of thing, but I was still pretty young. And eventually what ended up happening is that over time, as my dad kind of was watching these Texas Stars players, he would still say he was a Red Wings fan, but the Red Wings at the time weren't doing so hot anymore. He had seen them win their cups. And eventually a lot of these players that he had been watching, early on in their careers started making their way up to Dallas. And of course, with the way, NHL broadcasting is, if you're not in like the local market, it can be kind of difficult to stay following your team, especially, back in the, 2010s, that sort of time. So he started watching the Dallas Stars games because he was recognizing more and more of these players. And eventually his loyalties sort of shifted over to Dallas, which I know is probably a little bit of a controversial thing, but
To the
I don't
Jedi
think anyone's
side,
going to complain. Yeah, it
to
was.
the
He was
to the
shifting to the good
non-dark
guys.
side.
Yeah,
He came to
exactly.
the right side. That's the way you
Exactly.
should
Yeah, it was a
I'm just
conversion.
kidding.
It was a conversion. So he was watching the Dallas Stars now, so it was on on the TV in the house, and kind of eventually where it really became my own thing, I would say, was actually during COVID. So I had attended the Winter Classic with my dad, kind of as a last minute sort of thing. I think he ended up getting the tickets very last minute off of someone who no longer could go, and that was a fantastic game. We can probably talk about that later on. But that was like really one of the last like major kind of moments I remember before like the world went just completely crazy, because it was a few months before the shutdowns happened and everything. Um, and NHL obviously had paused, and kind of time goes on. We're in sort of school at this point, or I was still in high school at this point, but it's like the online courses. So you kind of log on for the day, and then after that, you log off. Can't really leave the house or anything. Everyone kind of remembers how that was, and the NHL decides, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to still do the playoffs. We're going to do this bubble sort of thing, and of course, nothing else to do. Uh, and obviously, my dad is rooting for the Stars, so we're watching the games, and it was really the series against Colorado where it absolutely like fully hooked me. I would say I was a bit of a just kind of a casual fan before that, and since then I've watched pretty much every game that's been on. And I can remember still the moment of Keevy Ranta scoring that hat trick goal. And for me, that's the moment. Like I'll never forget that, and I'll never forget listening to the Finnish broadcaster. Everybody knows what he said about that game. It was fantastic. And so since then, yeah, I've been a pretty diehard fan. Watch every game, try to go to one or two during the regular season if I can. It's been absolutely awesome. So that's my story of how I became the Stars fan that I am today. So
That's awesome. There's so many highlights in there you could hit, but uh, yeah, you're not the first person that has said that actually. To be
awesome.
honest with you, Zach, that the bubble playoffs, I don't think it necessarily created like a quantity of Stars
Uh-huh.
fans, but the quality of Stars fans
Hmm.
definitely increased from that point. I mean, to be completely honest with you, that was where this podcast started.
Hmm.
I mean, we were bored out of our minds, and we just decided, like, we're always arguing with each other on group chats and Snapchat,
Hmm.
anyways, about hockey. So let's just let everyone else see what we talk about and scream and yell at each other.
Yep.
It's fun. Um, Although don't go back and listen to those episodes. Now, like I went and listened to one the other day. It was really cringy, but uh, there's a lot of people that can relate to that, Zach. Like a whole
Mhm.
lot of people that can relate to that because, and I mean, the other thing about it, and you just mentioned one moment, but like
Mhm.
that was kind of like the epicenter of all of it, right? I mean, there was that. There was Dennis Garyanov, bless his heart, he's now playing overseas, but
Yeah.
he had the 4-goal game.
Yep, I remember that game.
You had Joe Pavelski, who, when we were down 2-1 to the Flames in the first round, he
Mhm.
scores the goal, with seconds remaining in the third period in game 4. They go on to win that game, and that
Mhm.
completely changed everything for that whole run. Um,
Yep.
you've got Anton Hudobin, who played out of his freaking mind and played
Yep.
it like the reincarnation of Dominik Hasek, like just flailing everywhere, and it's everything about that run we will remember for the rest of our life because on top of all of the great
100%.
plays and stuff like that, it was just you're never going to see that situation ever again. At least
Yeah.
I don't believe in our lifetime we're ever going to see that kind of situation ever
I
again.
hope
It
not.
was,
Yeah, I hope
yeah,
not.
knock on wood and keep fingers crossed. But like that, it's fantastic to think about that because that was a birthplace of a lot of hardcore, hockey fans like
Mhm.
yourself, like me. I also just did an episode earlier with Zoe,
Mhm.
with where that was kind of similar to hers. That's when it really started for her, and she's a relatively new fan for Stars hockey. So but let's go back to the Winter Classic for a second because
Yeah.
uh, would you say that's one of your favorite moments? Being a Stars fan because I was there as well,
Mhm.
and as was my whole family, all of my brothers, my sister, my wife, my kids. It was just it was awesome to be at a spectacle like that. Uh, w- Talk a little bit about your experience at the Winter Classic, and then also tell us, any other moments that you can think of like your favorite hockey games that you've been to.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the Winter Classic was probably I don't even, not even probably it's guaranteed probably guaranteed my favorite sporting event that I've been to, live sporting event that I've been to. It was, I didn't really know exactly what to expect. Obviously, I'd watched the Winter Classic on TV before, but I don't think it's a situation that like even if you explain like the concept, yeah, you're going to go watch hockey, you're going to be really far away from the ice because you're in this like football stadium. Even just describing that, I don't think it's anything that you can really like grasp without having been there. And I felt like it worked out almost perfectly for Dallas. I know there's been like kind of rumors about them doing some sort of stadium series maybe in Dallas coming up. But I remember the weather was perfect. It was overcast, but I don't think it rained. It was still pretty cold outside as well. So as far as I know, the ice conditions were at least decent. And the game too was just like you couldn't really script it better. Like I remember we were down like almost immediately. There was the Corey Perry, walk of shame. That is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in a hockey game. And then just kind of it almost felt like it was almost out of nowhere. We just like roared back, and the crowd was all into it, and it was just incredible. It was an absolutely amazing experience. And I remember the one other thing I really remember about that game was actually the walkout because it took so long with how many people were at the Cotton Bowl and their infrastructure is a little bit dated, I would say. And so we were kind of just clogged up in the stairwells, waiting to get out. Even once we got out onto like the kind of parking lot concourse sort of area, really long, big lines, and everyone was just singing the Stars at Night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas, and it was just so iconic. Like I'll never forget that. So that's definitely up there. One I'll mention because it's honestly really a funnier experience in the long term. In the short term, it was a little bit disappointing. Was it was I guess it was 2023, and I talked to my dad. I was like, hey, like I've never been to a playoff game. Like we should try to go. He's like, oh yeah, that would be really fun. When would you want to go? And I was like, well, let's see how they do. And if they get decently deep, maybe second, third round, like we'll try to go. And he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. We get through. Who was it that year in the first round? I'm blanking on it right now. Um, and we beat Seattle in 7 games, and then we play Vegas in the Western Conference Final, and my dad was like, "Hey, we're gonna go to Game 3. It's gonna be awesome." I was like, "All right, let's go." I'm super pumped. And then we lose the first 2 games in
Oh,
Vegas, and they were
Light
really close,
bulb.
like really close games. Like I really think that series, although I think Vegas ends up being the better team in the long run, they win the cup at the end of the day. I think that series would have been a little bit different if we could have won one of those first two in Vegas. But then game three, we get there. My dad and I were even on like the ESPN feed at one point because we were just in Victory Plaza, and they were like, "Hey, do you guys want to?" We're just trying to do like a little bit of hype video before, so there's just like a quick camera clip of us and a few other fans like chanting "Let's go Stars" as they like pan over as they're doing the kind of intro video. And we get up to our seats. We have pretty good view of everything. And within like I don't even know how fast it was, 5-10 minutes. There was the Jamie Benn cross check. We were already down, and then from there it was just nightmare scenario. And I will say it's still one of my favorite experiences because the Stars fans around us just made it so fun to be there, even though we were just absolutely devastated. Everyone was just cracking jokes. It definitely was a bit of a sour taste. Even now, like Vegas is one of my like personally least favorite teams. But I'll never forget that. It was still special just being with all the fans and having a good time regardless of the outcome. Um, and so I don't end it on a sour note. I'll give one more. That's actually a lot more recent. It was the Mikko Rantanen hat trick against Colorado this year. And when I think about that Joel Keevy Ranta moment, and about how that you mentioned making so many people kind of diehard fans. I've been thinking about just how much, almost like how much you can scale that factor up when it's Mikko Rantanen, who's supposed to be the superstar of your team for the next 8 years, scoring that, and it's even a little bit more of a dire situation where you're down, with whatever it was, 14 minutes left to go. That game was awesome. That moment was awesome, and I hope that that being able to be in person, that there were fans who went to that game and are like, okay, I'm locked in on these Stars for the rest of my life now. So
I was at every single one of those games you mentioned. Every single one of those games. And I agree with you. The Mikko Rantanen one especially, that assuming that his career goes well with the Stars for
mhm.
the rest of the long run, which I think it will, that's probably going to be one of the top highlights. I
Yeah,
mean, you can't. That was like Disney movie scripted the way that
yep,
it ended, and it of course,
of
like
course, yeah,
it's that. Every time I think of course, I think of when Mike Modano won the shootout in his final game at home before he went to Detroit,
hmm
and I was just thinking that as Mikko Rantanen was skating from center ice to go put it in the back of the net in the empty net, I was just like, I was hearing Daryl Ray in the back of my head. Of course, like of course this would happen.
yeah,
So I agree with you. I'm gonna put you on the spot for a second. I want to see if you
okay.
remember. Do you know who scored for the Nashville Predators in the Winter Classic?
Oh, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I feel like
A-
you'll say it, and I'll
And you
probably know.
and you're gonna kick yourself for when you hear his name,
Okay.
Matt Duchene.
Yeah, yeah, that should have been able to figure that out. Yeah,
And
yeah,
on top of that, I'll add something to what you said too. The the Radulov goal,
yeah,
which put us up to 3-2. That to this day is the loudest pop of any crowd that I've ever heard,
yeah,
and especially any hockey crowd that I've ever heard. Like, and just and of course, Radulov is known for his antics with his goal celebrations.
oh
He
yeah,
he goes over the top, which is amazing, and the fans love it and everything. But that was one where the goal celebration matched the
yeah,
intensity of the crowd like that.
yeah,
Like when I'm getting goosebumps now, just like feeling it now, like just remembering how that felt, watching that go in and watching it happen, and hearing the crowd, and then hearing Jeff K announce it afterwards. It was just that's such a good memory to have for me, and I'm glad that's one of your top memories, because
yeah,
honestly, I don't know if we'll get a stadium series. eh, I don't even know where they would do it. Like if they would do it
yeah,
at the Cotton Bowl again, and I'm like, no, they've been there, done that. They've already done the college football thing. So the only one that really makes sense to me, and maybe I'm not thinking clearly, is just to do it in Jerry World, do it at
yeah.
AT&T Stadium. But like, Then again,
Yeah,
it's just like it's a big stadium, yeah, but like I don't know.
yeah, it would be interesting for them to do it there. The other one that I think of is I know the Stars and the Rangers have had a pretty decent relationship, so maybe they would do it at like the ballpark. But I'm personally not the biggest fan of like the Winter Classic Stadium Series being on the baseball diamonds, just because I think the seating is a little bit more awkward than at the football stadiums. But that would be my other guess, or maybe Dallas ends up being like the road team for somewhere else. So I know Dallas Colorado has kind of been like I guess the dream like matchup for the next like Stadium Series or Winter Classic or something like that. So maybe they end up doing one in Denver against the Avs, which I think would be really fun. But
That makes a lot of sense to me, especially considering the recent playoff
yeah,
battles that they've had over the last couple of years, especially. And I'm sure that the Avs would want at least a crack at the Stars in a big game like that.
yeah,
If so, um, you sort of kind of answered this question already because of when you were talking about the Texas Stars and
hmm
you mentioned Jamie Benn, but
hmm
do you have like a player that also kind of sticks out to you other than Jamie Benn that maybe made you fall in love even more with the team?
yeah. Jamie Benn was definitely like my first favorite player. Like I said, I was a little kid. I remember like complaining to my dad. I asked him the next season. I was like, "Hey, when's like Jamie Benn getting back out there?" It's like, "Oh," he tried to explain to me, hey, he's up in Dallas now. Like, he can't come down. I'm like, "Why not? Like, why
Because
can't
he's
he
too
just
good.
get waived?" Yeah, I'm like, I didn't understand. I was like, "Dude, he's so good. Like, they should just bring him back." But like other than that, Joe Pavelski was always really entertaining, especially like
Oh
during the
yeah.
bubble run as well. And the one right now for me is probably Wyatt Johnston. The main reason for that is because when he, his rookie season, um, I like realized I was now at the age where like people my age are going to be playing in like the NHL, and I was like that like blew my mind. And I
Yeah,
mean he's just
trust me. I'm fixing to turn 32 here in a couple of weeks, and the fact that Wyatt Johnston is 10 years younger than me, it makes me feel very old. Continue.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, and he's just like even from his first game, I think he scored at least one goal, maybe it was two. And just his whole career so far, like his very young career, like he's just been such a dynamic player, and I think it's interesting because I think everyone knows how good he's been, but I think he still has at least one or two more gears that he can hit. At least I'm hopeful he can. And so I've just been really, really enjoyed watching him play, and I'm excited to see kind of where his career goes from here. So I think I would like to, at least I hope that this season maybe they get him a little bit stronger line mates. No offense to no disrespect to Jamie Benn or Maverick Bork or anything like that. Um, but I think just letting him play with some players who are a bit more dynamic and can kind of give him some more opportunities to make some plays and score goals and that sort of thing. I think we'll see his numbers go up even more than they've already been. So he's just been fantastic his entire career so far, and like I said, he's one of my favorite players right now for sure.
So that's a good segue to another question I've been asking people about, and at the time that we're recording this, it's July 8th, like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. But so we know like some fan stories were recorded before July 1st, so we didn't know
hmm
all the information that we know now. So like Glenn Gulletson is the head coach, Neil
hmm
Graham comes up as an assistant, which I'm very excited about. I actually like the
Me too.
tandem and everything. Unfortunately, we lost Mason Marchment because of
hmm
for cap reasons. Roddick Foxa does return to the team. Speaking of the bubble run,
hmm
and and then Colin Blackwell does resign as well. And obviously, Duchesne gets his contract. He stays with the Stars. And then you mentioned Maverick Bork, and then also Nils
hmm
Lundqvist returns as well. So the general feeling from social media and from a lot of fans is that this team is going to take a step back next year.
hmm
And Glenn Gulletson came out in the press conference and said quite the opposite. He was just
hmm
like, out of there's normally like 7 to 8 teams that can contend for the Stanley Cup. The Stars are one of them.
hmm
And he said with the current roster that we have, they have the opportunity to win the Stanley Cup. Uh, what I wanted to ask you is, despite all of the issues that they've had,
Mhm.
just with obviously with cap space and stuff. That do you think that this team still has a shot? And what do you think about the direction of the team right now? And you could go whatever direction you want. There's
Okay.
lots of different directions to go.
Yeah, yeah. I could probably talk forever about this. I guess
Exactly.
I guess
That's
I'll
why I have
start
a
with
podcast. That's
yeah, I guess
exactly
I'll
why I have a podcast.
I guess I'll start with in terms of can they compete for Stanley Cup? I think absolutely they should be. There's no reason they shouldn't be a contender. Is kind of my take on it. I was actually looking at this today. I wanted to see kind of how they're what they're kind of projected. Assuming Dumba gets traded because they are over the cap right now, so I'm assuming he's going to be on his way out pretty soon. But just looking at kind of what the roster sort of projects like for opening night versus what it was last season, I was actually a bit surprised because I also kind of had that feeling of okay, maybe they take a step back. But I guess one thing, I think Jim Nill pointed this out a little bit, and I've seen some other Stars fans kind of on Twitter and whatnot point this out. We're going to get a full season of Mikko Rantanen, full season of Liam Bixel, and that kind of is a bit of a pop to what your lineup looked like going into last season. Really, I think the biggest struggle is that how we ended last year, we had definitely more offensive depth. We lost Granlund in the offseason, Mason Marchment, Evgeny Dodonov even. But also that roster that was built by the end of the season was, over the cap technically. We were able to use LTIR. Mikko Rantanen's contract was retained either by Colorado or Carolina, or I think it was maybe even Chicago was like the third team in like the trade or something like that. Um, so when I was looking at the roster today, I kind of got the feeling, okay, they can definitely still compete, and there are like holes that I think need to get fixed. And the good news is that there's the trade deadline to do that. I think the right side of the defense like is still the biggest problem with the team, and that was the problem going into last offseason and kind of the moves that Jim Nill made. I think were kind of a rare bit of a flub there on his part with the Dumba contracts and even the Labushkin contract. Um, but I think there it is definitely fixable, especially with trade deadline, and it actually might even be a better chance for them to fix it, just because the way this offseason went was just I felt like I hadn't seen an offseason like this in a little bit, where it felt like going into free agency, there were all these names, and even then, it wasn't a super deep free agent class. It was kind of top heavy. And then within like it was that day before where everybody re-signed or had already been traded or whatever it was. And by the time we get to the market opening, there was like just completely slim pickings left. So honestly, I think it might end up working out a little bit better for the Stars. There were some, even the moves that they ended up making. I wasn't a super big fan of bringing Radek Faksa back, and I love Radek Faksa as a player. I just thought that the contract was a little bit of an interesting choice, especially with what their needs were. Um, and I was kind of hoping as well that they would end up getting Nick Perbix. He was kind of my like, diamond in the rough sort of character that I felt like they could add, put him in either a bottom six or middle six role or something like that, and he would be able to do really well. I thought he had a good year in Tampa. And they didn't end up grabbing him. And the contract that he signed to in Nashville was like exactly what I wanted, like the Stars to sign him to. But that's just getting a little bit too deep into it there. But overall, I think the team is in a good spot. I think that they're more than capable of kind of addressing those holes if they want to. And I think that with the coaching hire, I was really gunning for Neil Graham. I'm really glad that he's still on the coaching staff in some capacity. I think that's awesome for him. But I'm pretty cautiously optimistic about bringing back Gigi Glenn Gulitson. And I think that it should be a good year, hopefully. So
Oh man, I don't even know where to go with that. There's so much. Uh, okay, so there are a couple of and everything I think you said is correct. The one thing I would say is about Nick Perbix. We don't even know what his intentions were, like if he even
yeah,
wanted to come here, and
yeah,
that's the thing that a lot of people don't really think about. They just think about the number and oh well, he's a right shot defenseman and he played on Tampa and he's got all this. Okay, well he's got to want to come here,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you have to want to come here in order to sign the guy to a contract. That has to be the first thing. He has to have the desire to play for you. It
Yep.
doesn't matter how much money you give him. If he doesn't have a desire to go there, he might consider it if you way overpay him. But
Yeah.
in the situation the Stars were in, that just wasn't the case.
Yep.
The I do think Dumba is on his way out, and I think he knows he's on his way out. He just
Yeah.
I think the dust needs to settle for a couple of months, and then people will look at the roster and be like, "Oh, we kind of have some right-handed D depth, a need there."
Mhm.
And the Stars are fine with their right side. Honestly, I know that
Yeah.
it is a sore spot. It is because you've got Miro as your number one right-handed defenseman, and he's left-handed, which is I think they're
Yeah.
I think they're over it at this point, and he's fantastic wherever he
Yeah.
plays. So I think a lot of people have just kind of given up on the fact that he's trying to put him on a strong side.
Yeah.
But then the biggest caveat in all of this, and actually the DLLS guys have talked about this.
Mhm.
Nils Lundqvist is the biggest wild card in all of this
Absolutely.
because and a lot of people forget how well he was playing. And
Yeah.
and if you go and look back at the stats don't not the analytics stats, the advanced
Mhm.
analytics, but like the regular, goals, assists, points, time on
Yeah.
ice, they don't tell the real story of how he was playing. He was playing very, very well, and I was extremely impressed with how he was playing. And there were points when before he got hurt that he was playing on the second pairing. He was a top four
Yeah.
defenseman playing with Esa Lindell.
Yeah.
And a lot of people forget that. It was Harley and Miro, and then it was
Mhm.
Essa and Nils Lundqvist.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm really excited about Nils getting a true shot. Like
Mhm.
he did everything right last offseason. He got bigger, he got heavier, he played way better defensively. There were streaks of offense in there that he just didn't finish on his chances on, and then he gets in a major injury like he did this year, and
Mhm.
that just really sucks. And then I know that a lot of people have been anti Labushkin a little bit. I don't understand that, to be completely honest. I really don't. I really don't. This is not a Ryan Suter guy. He's really not.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of people forget when Miro got hurt, who was playing next to Harley on the top pairing?
Yeah. It
It
was
was
it was
Ilya
Labushkin. Yep.
Labushkin. It was not Esa Lindell. It was Ilya Labushkin who was playing on the right side with Thomas Harley. And the and how much are you paying him? 3.25 for a number 2 defenseman, a fill-in number 2 defenseman. That's really good value. And if you really want to upgrade your top 4D and he's your number 4 guy for right now until the trade deadline, great. And then you go out
Yeah.
and you get another Chris Tanev or something like that, and he slides down to your bottom pairing. That's fantastic. You got Bischel and Ilya down there as your bottom pairing. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So there are so, and I don't understand the well, I do understand, but I don't understand the pessimism that some Stars fans have about this team. It's just like we're just gonna get a wild card spot or not even make the. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, no, this team still has a lot of the same players. Yes, they had to get a little bit of a facelift and had to go in for plastic surgery in order to make it
Mhm.
fit under the cap and in the budget. But you got to do what you got to do, and Jim Nill put him in the best possible situation that he could. And
Mhm.
and again, everyone's forgetting that the right hand side, it looks immensely better with Mikko Rantanen up there. He proved
Yeah.
he is a superstar in the playoffs. He proved it, and he didn't even play a full season.
Yep.
So like get now there's a lot of pressure on him because he makes $12 million, but there should be. So
Absolutely.
so like he has to perform. That's just what he
Yeah.
has to do.
And I think that's like one thing. Another way to kind of put it into context too is if like if Mikko Rantanen isn't picked up at the trade deadline, the Stars probably lose in that first round. Maybe not even probably guaranteed losing that first round, right? He's the one who scores the game winning
Well,
goals there.
I would even
Uh,
argue, honestly, Zach, that they don't even get to the third round without Mikko Rantanen and Jake Ottinger. You don't have
yeah,
either one of
yeah,
those are the only two guys with a little bit of Sagan and Granlund sprinkled in there. Uh, that's the only reason why they even got that far, and they
yeah,
got that far off of two players. That's
yeah,
the crazy thing. Like,
and
like, and so, like, come on.
And the
If anybody had like actually contributed in the playoffs and played the way that they had, from January to March or whatever, they could
mhm.
have gone further.
Yeah, and the good news
Come
is
on.
like so we end up getting Rantanen. We signed him for 8 years. If you told me going into free agency, if Mikko Rantanen was still a free agent as was kind of planned to be, that we were going to sign Mikko Rantanen, that would be like that's you. Good job, you won the off season there. But then also like Ottinger contract extension I think starts this season, and we have him for 8 years. Wyatt Johnston we've got for the next 5 years on a actually pretty friendly deal. Rupe Hintz we have for a while still. Heiskanen we have for a while still. Um, like if you even if you somehow lose Robertson and Harley, which I don't think is going to end up happening, if you have a core of Rantanen, Hintz, Johnston, Ottinger, Heiskanen for at least the next 5 years, that is a winning core that you can build around regardless. And when you start to add in Robertson and Harley, which I think they should be able to keep them both, unless the players ask for like a really high number beyond what Dallas can make work. You add that into the core, like you are building a superstar team, and all you have to do is find those pieces that you can put around them and make work. And that's kind of what I think a lot of the teams that we've seen win the cup have been able to do, especially Florida. Florida got Matthew Tkachuk, but they also already had Barkov down there. And some of their other kind of stars, they had Ekblad
Ekblad.
who re-signed there, and then they were just filling in the pieces that they needed around them. They've gotten really good value out of I guess it's Lindell. They added Brad Marchand, who's going to be there forever, I guess. All
He's
these
gonna
sorts of
play till
things.
he's gonna play till he's like 63.
Yeah, it's that contract was very interesting to me, but yeah, that's what they did is they just built around the core that they had created, and now they've won 2 cups. They went to 3 straight finals, and they look like they want to win more as well. So I think Dallas is in a good spot in the big picture. It's just about how can they put it together and win those 16 games they need to win at the end of the year. So
And stop running out of gas in the third round. I mean,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
really what's holding them back. So, okay, well, we're already at 42 minutes, so I got one more question for you.
Okay,
And again, crazy. I say this for every episode, but it's like it doesn't feel like it's been 42 minutes or
I
whatever.
know. Yeah.
Um, and this is the same question that I ask every Stars fan that comes onto the podcast for the series. And what I ask them is, just let's just pretend like the Stars, whether it's like the entire group or just like a select handful of them or whatever, are
Mhm.
actually like truly listening to us right now talk about this. Like just talk about the team.
Okay.
Um, what would you want them to know, or what would you want to say to them?
Oh man, that's a really good question. Actually, I feel like I would just tell them, remind them, hey, the whole city's behind you, the whole state's behind you. We know they're capable of this. I think they know that they're capable of this, and they just got to keep giving it them all, give it their all, and we're rooting for them the whole way. So that's what it's all about.
At and I say this all the time too. Is just I would just tell them thank you.
Yeah.
That I mean, just and the other reason why I do series like this, unfortunately, is because of the toxicity of social media,
Hmm.
especially not trying to be Elon Musk-ish, but X is very toxic, very toxic. Uh, but that's sometimes the only things that the players hear. They only
Hmm.
hear the criticisms, which I mean are valid. That they get paid millions of dollars
Yeah.
to play a game, and so it's valid to criticize them. But what we as fans continue to forget about is we just forget to say thank you
Hmm.
and just show them the appreciation of you know bringing people together, which is very hard to do in this world nowadays.
Hmm.
And they're the ones that do it, and they don't get any thanks for it. And they're one of the few, entities,
Hmm.
organizations, however you want to look at it, that can do that. Sports are one of the few things that can do that nowadays.
Yeah.
So that's what I would want to say to them. If I could talk to them as a Stars fan, not as a podcaster. But that would seriously be my answer. But we got to wrap it up here, Zach. 45 minutes, man. That's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today. I really hope you had fun, and I hope you continue to be a Stars fan. And good luck with the rest of your internship, and you're finishing up your education too.
Yep. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It was an absolute blast. So.
Well, you're welcome. And for all of you guys who are listening to us afterwards, whether that's watching us on YouTube or listening on the audio side, thank you all for doing so. If you're on YouTube or if you have the chance to go to YouTube, please consider clicking like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're going live every Tuesday night at 7 Central Time, where one of these episodes comes out. And me, Chris, and James. Zach is the other brother that comes on infrequently, and we'll be going live every Wednesday throughout the summer at 9:15, just to talk about the latest things going on or whatever the heck we want to. Sometimes it just depends, and we'd love to see you guys there and join in the chat, the live chat there anytime that you can. So alongside Zach, my name is Ryan. We'll catch you guys on the flip side, and we hope you guys have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you guys are listening. And we are looking forward to the 2025-2026 season. Zach, can you give us a go stars?
Hey, go Stars!